Okay, you are welcome to chemistry class once again with your teacher and Christopher GK. You are welcome. Today, on this particular video, you will be looking at the topic titled bases. We'll be looking at base. In the last video, we discussed acids. This video will be looking at the topic bases. And by the end of this particular class, you should be able to learn what? Define what base is. You define a base and state the characteristics of bases, explain the method of preparing bases, explain the reactions of bases, and lastly, the uses of bases. All right, these are the things we are going to look at in this particular class. All right, one after the other. What is actually a base? We'll look at the definition of bases and things that has to do with base around here. Now, a base is actually a substance which neutralizes an acid to yield salt and water only. Now, we can put it this way, that base is a substance. When react with acid, it produces salt and water only. In our last class, we talked about reactions of acid. We said that acid reacts with base to form salt and water only, which is a neutralization reaction. We are also saying it here that base is a substance that when it reacts with acid, it produces salt and water only. It neutralizes acid to form salt and water only. Now, let me put this also this way, that base is an oxide and hydroxide of a metal. Bases are the oxide and hydroxides of metals. When a metal burns in air, the oxide that will be formed is a base, or a hydroxide. That particular oxide of metal, when it dissolves in water, it forms a hydroxide and it is also a base. So it is either an oxide or a hydroxide of a metal. Base can also be said this way, that base is a substance, when it dissolves in water, it produces hydroxyl ion. Hydroxyl ion as the only negative ion. Still remember that acid, we define it as acid is a substance, when it dissolves in water, it produces hydrogen ion as the only positive ion. You can also define acid base this way. That is a substance that when it dissolves in water, it produces hydroxyl ion. I mean OH minus, OH ion as the only negative ion. It's also a definition of base. So example of a base, we have sodium oxide, magnesium hydroxide, even sodium hydroxide, and many of them, calcium oxide, oxide of metals, as many metals as you know, and a hydroxide of it. We have many bases. Oxide and hydroxide of a metal is called a base. Now, we have bases that are soluble and those that are not soluble. So an alkali is a base, a basic oxide, which is soluble in water. So soluble bases are called alkalis. Soluble bases are called alkalis. Then those that are whether soluble or not soluble, they are base. So soluble bases are called what? Alkalis. So that is it. What are the examples? In addition to example of bases we gave before, examples of soluble bases now is sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide. These are very, very basic and very, very soluble in water. Sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide, these are soluble bases. But outside of heavy elements like lead oxide, zinc oxide, calcium oxide, copper oxide, they are insoluble in water. So they are not alkalics, but they are base. And that is not removing them from being a base. They are just base, but they are not alkalis. But something like calcium oxide and magnesium oxide, they are slightly soluble. They are slightly soluble in water, and we can regard them as alkalis. But the major and the most soluble of them is potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, and magnesium hydroxide. So, like the way we have strong acid and strong base, strong acid and weak acid, also in bases we have strong base and weak base. Strong bases and weak bases. Now that is it. What are the unique characteristics or properties of bases? Number one, bases are soapy to touch. When you touch, they are soapy. When you touch a base, it's soapy. Number two is that they have bitter tastes. They have bitter tastes. We said before that acid has sour taste, but base has bitter taste. Example, lime water. Then number three is that as base turn red litmus paper blue, but acid turns blue to red. When you put a red litmus paper in a basic solution, it will turn the red litmus to blue. It has effect on the red litmus, but it doesn't have effect on the blue litmus. All right, that is it. The number fourth characteristic is a concentrated form of the caustic alkali. That means bases. They are corrosive. Sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, concentrated form of them are corrosive. Of course, we know acids, strong acids, are in concentrated form as a corrosive acid. Even bases, they're also corrosive. The concentrated form of this soluble bases, which are these alkalis, they are corrosive also. Now, because of that, they can also serve as electrolytes. They are also electrolytes. They can allow electricity to pass through them. They are good electrolytes. That is it for the characteristics of bases. We will be looking at how can we prepare a base. How can bases be prepared? Number one is combustion of a reactive metals in air. You know that we said that a base is an oxide of a metal. So when a metal burns in air, it produces a base. Example now, calcium, if it burns in air, produces calcium oxide, and that is a base. So when electropositive elements are heated in oxygen, which is not air, they form metallic oxide. It's not only this one, so the oxide of metals are bases. So when you heat, combustion of the reactive metals in air gives us a base. That is one of the ways in which you can prepare it. Number two is that we can prepare them by the reaction of metals with water or in water, steam, to produce the hydroxide. Base, we define it as an oxide and a hydroxide of a metal. So when a metal is being heated on air, combustion, it gives you oxide. When a metal is being dissolved in water or react with water, it forms hydroxide, and a hydrogen gas will also be given off. So, but the base there is this one as an example. We have calcium hydroxide as an example. We can also prepare a base by the composition of metal hydroxide by heating. Metal hydroxide is already a base, of course, but you want to get another type of base. You want to get maybe calcium oxide now, you can heat calcium hydroxide to get calcium oxide and water there. So these are the ways in which you can get one base or the other. Depends on what you want to get and what you want to produce. That is it. So we can also prepare a base by double decomposition reaction. Double decomposition reaction. When we use copper salt and sodium hydroxide is a base. Of course, when you react with copper 2 tetraoxosulfate acid, copper hydroxide will be formed as a base, but it's not a soluble base. And sodium sulfate will also be produced. But what we are interested in here is the hydroxide that will be formed. We don't have copper hydroxide. How do we get it? React the copper salt with sodium hydroxide, it gives you copper hydroxide. Then, how again? We can also dissolving oxide in water. When we are explaining bases, we say that it's an oxide of metal and a hydroxide of metal. When you have an oxide and dissolve it in water, it gives you hydroxide of that particular metal, and that is a base. Example, sodium oxide dissolved in water to give you sodium hydroxide. You just need to balance the equation. That is the only thing. Balance the equation, put 2 in front of it. Potassium hydroxide dissolved in water, it gives you potassium hydroxide. So that is just what you need on that. And these are the method in which bases can be prepared. In case you can use any of the method, depends on what you want to prepare. What are now the reactions of bases or chemical properties? Chemical properties, or we call it reactions of bases. Number one is reaction with acid. The way we said in our last video that acid react with bases, also bases also react with acid to form what? Salt and water only. We call it what? Neutralization reaction. So when sodium hydroxide, which is a base, react with HCl, which is an acid, it will form salt, sodium chloride, and water only, which is the only product. We call it neutralization. Now, sodium hydroxide is a base, acid is a base. What will be formed is entirely a substance which does not have effect on the litmus paper, sodium chloride, which is a normal salt. All right, another chemical reaction of bases is that bases, they react with metallic hydroxide with heat. Zinc oxide, when you heat it, it will produce zinc oxide. It's also a base. It's also a base and water. It reacts with ammonium salt to produce what? Ammonium gas. So when a base, something like, as an example, calcium hydroxide, react with ammonium salt, which is ammonium chloride, will have a hydrogen gas liberated. Hydrogen gas will be liberated. Another type of salt will also be produced. Calcium chloride will be produced, but ammonia gas will be liberated, and water will also be there. Sodium hydroxide, when he reacts with ammonium nitrate, hydrogen gas, ammonia gas will also be liberated. That is a unique reaction of what? Bases. What can we use base for? Uses of bases is what we are looking at. So you know that bases are many, as we pointed them out. It depends on the one, but let's talk about a few of them. Sodium hydroxide is the most common basis and is very soluble. Hence, is used as a what? Drying agent. So we use it. We also use bases are used in making what? Soup. We use bases in making soup. We use bases in what? Neutralization of salt acidity. We say that when a base reacts with acid, it neutralizes it to form salt and water. For that reason, calcium hydroxide is used in the neutralization of what? Salt acidity. Because if it reacts with the salt, with the salt acidity, it will neutralize the effect of acidic soil, and it becomes neutral. So it helps in neutralizing the soil acidity. Then magnesium hydroxide is used in the production of what? Toothpaste, and many more, which we can use base for. Calcium hydroxide is used in making mortar, POP, which is plaster of Paris, and many other things. We can use them in even making cement and sugar refinery and all of that. So many other areas in which we can use it for. Ammonium hydroxide is used in weak solutions as common cleanser and grease solvent. We use it as grease solvent and cleanser, and the ammonia is used in making fertilizer and detergent. These are just 7 of them that we are to look at, and many other bases we have. You can make inquiry of that, or in our other videos, we can talk more about that. So far, we need to know that we have what we call pH scale, which has to do with acidity and the alkalinity of a particular medium. So the term pH denotes hydrogen ion index. Hydrogen ion index. Now, it is a number scale used to express the degree of acidity and alkalinity of a particular medium or a particular solution. And the number ranges from 0 to 14. A solution with pH value less than 7, we call it acidic solution. When you set pH, or in a pH, it reads from 0 to less than 7, we say that that particular solution is acidic. 7 is neutral, but greater than 7 is alkaline. That means it's basic, it's alkaline. But 7 is neutral solution. It helps us to measure the acidity and alkalinity of a particular medium. That is the pH scale. Now, a solution with pH of 7 is neutral. I said it before. It means that it is neither acidic nor alkaline. The pH solution can be measured with the use of what? pH meter. The pH of a solution can be measured with an instrument called what? pH meter. And with that, these are the ranges. When you have color, a red, let's say color red, and pH reads from 1 to 3, it means that that particular solution is very, very what? Acidic, very acidic. Orange, pH value 4 to 5, weak acid. 6, when it's yellow, is very weak acid. Green, which is 7, we said it before, 7 is neutral. 8 is very weak base. Indigo, which is 9 to 10, weak base. But from 11 to 14, very basic, strong base, very basic, violent. So the pH range and the color changes of a universal indicator. Now that is the chart that is here. It's on your screen. The color and the range of the particular pH that indicates acidity and alkalinity of that particular medium. All right, so far we have talked about that base is a substance which we neutralize an acid to yield what? Salt and water only. And it is an oxide or hydroxide of a metal. And an alkaline is a basic hydroxide which is soluble in water. Bases that are soluble in water is what we refer to as alkalics. That is what we have done so far, and we have talked about their the characteristics and their reactions, and looked at the pH also. For further discussion, remember to get me through my phone lines, +234 80655 73229, or send me an email through my email address at crystal116@gmail.com. Now, we would like to hear from you. Give us comments and feedback from this particular video. Thank you very much for being part of this particular class, and get ready for the next class. Thank you.